All right, what is up, folks? This is Matt from Midlife Crisis. My buddy and I, Mike, stream on Twitch Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. So, if you like this video, we'd love for you to come hang out with us. All right, let's get started. This video is meant for newer players, right, who have leveled characters, but they're frustrated because they can't get the same damage numbers that they see on these build websites, Allcast, Dots Gaming, Skinny Cheats, etc. And these are three simple areas that most newer players neglect, right? If you can't get those stats and you're wondering why, these three things are going to absolutely help, all right? I'm going to break them down one at a time, but make no mistake. If you are not adding these three things into your build in ESO, you cannot get to the top tier stats in this game. All right, so if you want to max out your damage, or you want to max out your healing or buff time, damage mitigation as a healer or a tank, keep on watching. All right, let's get into it. Now, quick little disclaimer, I want to set the stage here, but a quick little disclaimer, this video is not going to go over skill rotation. All right, that is a completely separate video I'm going to do just on skill rotations. Each one is unique to the character that you build, and it's not something that I want to get into here. However, that said, let's be clear. The single greatest differentiator between the average/decent ESO player and the best ESO players is their ability in their skill rotation. Okay, the best players have an amazing skill rotation that they have mastered, and it is absolutely, they can do it unconsciously. All right, now what I will say though, every one of those players that's in that top tier are doing all three of these three stat boosts that I'm about to go over, okay? And they do it 100% of the time consistently. So let me set the stage, because if I'm going to talk about stats, we got to know where we're going from here. So first things first, right? This character is level 50, all right? This account does have champion points in it, but I have taken all of the champion points off, so we're not dealing with champion points. Why? I don't want you to think you have to have 1,000 champion points to be able to do damage to this game. It's not the case. Does equipping champion points in the right places help? Of course, right? But there are plenty of places like in Battlegrounds or non-CP Cyrodiil campaigns where they don't matter anyway. All right, so we're just going to do that as a 0, so that way we're on the same baseline here. Next, in terms of what stats I do have, they're coming from two main areas here. I've put all of my attribute points into Magicka. All right, this is a Mag Sort, nice crispy bacon, High Elf Sorcerer. Okay, all of it is in Magic. I have 0 in health, 0 in stamina. Okay, I also have a Mundus Stone that's in effect the Mage, which is giving me 2,023 maximum Magicka. Okay, so this maximum Magicka number here, 21,127, does reflect the fact that I have that Mundus Stone active. All right, but this is a pretty good baseline. What I have done is I have removed all of the skills, all of the passives, all of the equipment. They're all off there, right? I don't have any buffs other than the Mundus Stone and the fact that I have those attribute points in Magic. Okay, so that's where we're gonna be starting from here. And what I'm gonna do is just to kind of show you, I'm gonna add some gear on here, and then we'll use that for our baseline. Okay, now I have now equipped nice crispy bacon with some gear. Some of it is gold. I think I have 2 gold rings here, Mother Sorrow. Most of it is purple. And I have set bonuses, obviously, that are clicking in now. I got the Giuliano set, which is craftable, very easy to obtain. And I have the Mother Sorrow set. All right, this is an overland set that's also pretty easy to obtain. You can get it in Guild Traders, or you can just farm into Deshawn, and you can get this. So I didn't want you to think I was running some gear that you needed to get perfected trials, farmed and grind through that process to get gear. This is just Mother Sorrow and Giuliano's, okay? And this is going to give us some baseline stats. So let's take a look at kind of what we're looking at here and go from there. So, again, 64 in Magicka. I have the Mage Mundus Stone going on here, and I have a maximum Magicka of 27,966. Max health, 16,000. Max stamina, 12,000, okay? Spell damage right now, 2421. Weapon damage, 2132. That's just because that's coming from the same stats. Spell critical, 34.6%. Spell penetration, 1435. Okay. Spell resistance, 7243. Critical resistance, 1444. This is where we're going to start. All right. Don't worry about the numbers per se. I just want you to understand that there are differences as we add certain stat boosting items and what they're going to do. It's not exactly about the precise number. That's more end game when you're trying to fine tune, and we'll get into that. However, this is our baseline for moving forward so you can understand where we're starting from. Okay, again, still no champion points. All I did was put gear on. That is it. All right, so we're going to get into it, and we're going to go from there. All right, folks, forgotten stat number 1, skill passives. Okay, skill passives. Now, this is important as we look at our skills, okay? And as you can see, I've taken all of the passives off on this character. And so all of those numbers I gave you before did not have any of these passives in there. Now, there are some obvious ones and there's some not so obvious ones. And what I see a lot of newer players in terms of making a mistake is they rush to get to level 50 as fast as they can. And in that process, they miss a lot of the sky shards and skill point quest line storylines that give skill points as a reward. They miss out on those skill points, and so they have a limited number of skill points that they can use to build their character. And what they typically do is they focus on the class skills that they need for their rotation, the weapon skills that they need for their rotation, whichever armor they focus on, which is usually just one. And this is just a brand new level 50 character that I had, so I wanted to use for the video. They rarely do any of these world passives. They don't have a lot of guild passives or abilities in there, or alliance war. And then most people remember the racial passives here, right? So if you're a high elf, you're going to get certain racial passives that benefit magic. There's a reason a lot of sorcerers are high elves, just like stamina characters tend to be either orcs or wood elves or things like that, right? And so these are pretty obvious, but there's some not so obvious ones in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding these in here so we can see the difference in the numbers, okay? So remember where we're starting from here. All right, we're about just under 28,000 magicka, 16,000 health, 12,000 stamina. We got some spell damage, 2,400, critical, 34.6%, spell penetration, 1435, okay? So as I start adding in these skills, right off the bat, we're going to see some big differences. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in here and we'll see what the difference on those numbers are. So all I've done right now is add the racial passives from the high elf skills. Okay. So this is just whatever race you decide. These are going to be unique to that. These are what high elf brings to the table. I have spell recharge. I have Cirabane's boon and elemental talent. And of course highborn, which is just the innate ability you have, which gives you experience gain to destruction staff skill line and does increase your experience gain by 1%. Okay, so now that these are in here, I have some stats that are going to be helping me out, okay? So when we go back to character screen, we're already seeing, now I'm almost at 30,000 magicka, okay? So this is getting better. I have a little more spell damage. This is good, okay? Now, as I add in and go through these passives, we're going to see those improve. So class skills, this is one that's kind of a no-brainer. Most people are going to put these in here in terms of passive skills. I'm just going to start adding them now. And again, these are ones that most people will think about. They're pretty obvious. Okay. All right. Now we got some class skills. So what are we doing here? Okay. Hasn't changed the max magicka. I do think we added some spell damage. What we're going to see, though, is a lot of those passives are going to affect the actual skills that we use within these skill lines. So, for example, Crystal Fag becomes more powerful, right, because I have these passives in there. So these are important, right? When we talk about passives like blood magic, right? When you hit an enemy with a directly applied dark magic ability, you heal for 1,600. This is going to, why is that going to factor in? Well, every time crystal fragments procs, and I'm doing that in my rotation, I'm going to get a heal, okay? So these passives are a big deal. If you didn't have this, that's healing you're not getting because you haven't put skill points in these passives, all right? Obviously, you're going to see the same with the other ones here. Daedric Summoning, Expert Summoner, right? Increase your max health by 4% while you have a Daedric Summoning pet active. So just by having a pet active, I'm getting an extra 4% max health, right? And these things stack. These things start to add up. Storm Calling, same deal, right? Expert Mage increases your weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcerer ability slotted. Now, right now, I don't have any abilities slotted, but you can imagine that's weapon and spell damage, 2% for every one that I add in here. So as part of my rotation, right, as I have these class skills or the sorcerer abilities slotted, that's any of these, I'm going to get more weapon damage, more spell damage, right? Those add up. Again, those are pretty obvious ones. We know that. Weapons passive, same thing. Destruction Staff, what do we see here? Trifocus. This is going to give a higher ability to, for example, fully charged ice heavy attacks grant you damage shield, right? Or Inferno Staff attacks give you 6% additional damage. There comes that damage again, right? So when I look at my inventory, because I have an Inferno Staff of Mother Sorrow, I know that then by putting a skill point in this Trifocus, I am adding damage right off the bat just by putting skills or equipping these skills, okay? Of course, penetrating magic, right? Your destruction staff abilities ignore 10% of the enemy's spell resistance. Increases your chance to apply elemental status effects. This is going to do, so like for example, for the Inferno Staff, increase your damage done with a single target abilities by 4%. Again, single target attacks, right? That could be Force Pulse. That could be Destructive Touch, right? Impulse. These are going to hit harder because you put points into these passives. And you're saying, Matt, these are real obvious things. I get all these things. Okay, here's what you have to understand. As you add all of these combined, it takes a lot of skill points to invest in all of the passives needed. So pause for a second and hear me here. Adding the armor abilities. Look at this. 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, right? So we're at 2, 4, 6, 8, 11 skill points just to put in the passives in the light armor line. Does it make a difference? Well, yeah, right? Snares, maybe not so big of a deal, right? You get the cost of sprint going down. But some of these things, when you talk about increasing magicka recovery or reducing the cost of your magicka abilities, your spell resistance, your spell critical, spell penetration, these add up. You need to have points in these. And what happens is people don't have enough skill points, and so they try to prioritize the best things they can think of to make their character do as much damage as possible. The bottom line is that if you don't have the stacking effect of all of these passives, you simply cannot do the type of damage you're going to see these top tier players do. It just won't happen. Because what you don't understand is that there could be 10 passives that are all stacking to help one attack do more damage, right? This is just light armor. When you get into medium and heavy armor, now it all depends on your style of build, but if your equipment has some heavy armor on it, right? I'm running all light. But if you have, let's say, medium shoulders, heavy helm, something like that, a lot of people will craft a heavy chest piece because you get the maximum armor benefit. You see a lot of builds out there that do that. Okay, well now I have a heavy piece that's part of my gear. Are there any heavy passives that can help with that, such as, say, Juggernaut, which is going to give you a percentage increase in maximum health for just having a piece of heavy armor equipped? That helps. These are big deals. It seems like 1% isn't a big deal, but when you have 10 different skill passives that add 1% here, 1% there, that's a 10% boost when you add them all up. And those end up cumulatively making a big deal. Okay? So those are the armor passives. Let me tell you some passives that I see get missed all the time. Guild, Undaunted. Obviously you have, and why? Because it takes a long time to level up Undaunted. This is a newer character. I've done a couple dungeons. I was using dungeons to try to level up the character to level 50 as fast as I could. I got to Undaunted 3, right? So I have some actives here, but it's the passives, right? Undaunted Command, activating a synergy restores 2% of your max health, stamina, and magicka, right? Current bonus, that's what it's going to give me. But Metal. This is the one increases your max health, stamina, and magicka by 1% per type of armor, that's heavy, medium, or light, that you have equipped. Okay, so let's say that example where you have mostly light armor for a mage, but you do have one medium piece and one heavy piece. That's a 3% gain on all three of those major stats. That's huge. That's huge. And people will just not get this because it takes a long time to level up Undaunted, so they just forget about that. But then they don't understand how they edge out those stats to maximize their DPS. Undaunted's one that I see gets missed a lot, right? Other ones are active skills with a passive benefit, right? So for example, I'm going to head over here to Mage's Guild, and we're going to look at Inner Light. Inner Light is a skill that you can have on your bar, and when it's equipped, what's going to happen is it's going to increase, just says while slotted, your max magicka is increased by 5%, and you gain Major Prophecy, increasing your spell critical rating by 2629. Again, these are free stats, and they're there because you've put the skill points into places you need to put them, okay? So, I've explained that these stack on each other and why that's important, right? I see a lot of newer players, they rush to get to 50, they don't have the skill points, and so they're limited to focusing on the things they absolutely must have, usually active skills, and not putting them in those passive skills, which have a synergistic effect, which are going to help make you last longer in terms of more health, more damage mitigation, things like that, dodge chance, whatever it might be, right? And do more damage, or increase the time of your stat boosting effects, right? Or increase the effectiveness of those stat boosting effects. So as a healer, tank, or DPS, all of these things matter, okay? Bottom line, if you do not have the skill points to put into these passives that you should have, you are not going to have the stats that you want when it comes to end game content. All right, guys, the skill passives take a little bit more time. The next two shouldn't take too long. I will move on. Forgotten stat number 2 is food. Food. I'm guilty of this. We've all been there, but I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a vet trial and players with the best gear, perfected rotations, the perfect team build out, they roll into a trial and they die before realizing they forgot to have a food buff active. Right off the bat, when you're looking at stats, you have an immediate boost when you do something as simple as even a crown fortifying meal. They throw these at you as the daily reward logins things, all right? Is it the best food out there? No. It's tri-stat, though. It's going to give you health, magicka, and stamina. But look at it. 4462 health, 4105 magicka, and 4105 stamina for 2 hours. So it's not like this is some buff that you have to sit there and fight to maintain. It's 2 hours, right? It's a long time. The key is just simply having one actually active, okay? Whether, again, something as simple as a crown fortifying meal. Most players, right, are going to go, typically the better food and drink recipes are purple and gold because it's going to raise the stats higher. It's also going to give you more stats that it boosts, okay? So those are going to be typically the best ones. If you kind of want a basic rule of thumb, blue recipes are usually going to boost 2 stats, purple 3, gold 4. Again, that's not always the case, but that's generally the case, right? So if I go to foods here just to show you, here's here's roast pig. That's green. That's just 1, right? Max health. Here's blue, right? So this soup increases max health by 53.95. It's a good amount. And max magicka by 49.36. So these are hey, I'm just gaming. I'm doing kind of, nothing major. I'm not doing vet content. These are an easy one to run. They're cheap. You can either make these, craft them yourself, or buy them for relatively cheap on Guild Traders. And as a magicka character, obviously you want health and magicka. If you were a stamina character, you would want health and stamina. And you're going to be just fine, right? But these, remember, your max magicka affects all of your other stats, like how much damage you do, how much damage you can withstand, things like that. And obviously health is going to be a direct correlation to your survivability. When you go up to these purple, so here we go with the rabbit preserves here, I'm getting health, I'm getting magicka, I'm also getting stamina. So now I got 3 stats that are boosted. And you might think, well, why do I want stamina as a magicka character, or why do I want magicka as a stamina character? To certain skills you might need to keep up times with, you usually see it from magicka characters needing stamina, not so much stamina characters needing magicka. The reason is because if you dodge roll a lot, or you're blocking for major attacks on a certain boss, it's gonna whittle your stamina down. And most, as you know, magicka characters don't have anything in stamina, so they have a very low value. I'm at 12,000, so you can only block so many attacks, or dodge roll so much, or sprint for so long before you're just out of stamina. So having a food that can mitigate that for you is a good idea. All right. That's another popular one. And then you get your top tier foods. These are kind of expensive, right? When you get some of these, when you see these build videos and they're showing top tier type stuff, they're running very good food buffs. All right. So something like a Bewitched Sugar Skulls. Why is this popular? Because you're getting health, stamina, and magicka, right? You're also getting health recovery. So you're getting that 4th stat, that health recovery stat, right? Some of these might be max health, max magicka, and magicka regen, right? Those are popular too, right? So now I'm getting some sustain, and I'm getting my 2 main stats boosted. It just really depends on how you want to play. It also depends on how your build is. The point, though, is that even if it's between Bewitched Sugar Skulls and Roast Pig, something is better than nothing, right? So these are very cheap down here. Look, I'm getting almost 5,400 health and almost 5,000 magic for something that, I can just have stacks of 200 just sitting in your inventory. You're never going to worry about running out of these. So food. Make sure you have something that makes sense with your build. Don't boost magic if you don't need it. Don't boost stam if you don't need it. But having that active is absolutely going to help your survivability. And you also have to think about it like this. Some of these 5-set bonuses, when it comes to, what things it can do, this is, Julianos is going to not be the best example here, but when you think about like the Necropotent set and things like that, you're getting a 5-set bonus to increase stats that still aren't as high as what just having 1 crown fortifying meal is. So this is having a food buff active is literally like having another 5-set bonus active on you at all times. So as Shio LaBeouf says,
do it! Just do it! Just do it!
All right, guys, the 3rd forgotten stat, potions. Potions are something that a lot of new players neglect because, and I'm guilty of this too, when I started playing this game, I thought potions were a get out of jail free card. You start getting low health, pop a potion, keep yourself from dying, and that's really the end of it. It was a very conditional, when do I need it? If I need it, I'll use it. What I didn't realize, though, is that the stat boosting effects of potions can be maintained 100% of the time if you invest the skill points in the medicinal use passive under the alchemy crafting skill line. Okay, so if you invest those points, the uptime for potions is longer than the cooldown time for potions, right? You get an uptime of about 47, 48 seconds, and the cooldown is 45 seconds, which means you can keep a potion up running 100% of the time. Now, I'm going to show you some potions here. And this character, my character here, I do not have. I just got to level 50. I have not leveled up alchemy to a point where I can put those in there. So most people see what? They see a 36.3 second uptime for a potion. You can increase that to beyond 45 seconds. But let's just take a look at what potions do for you, okay? Not only, even something as simple as the restoration potion that the Crown Store, if they throw these at you just for daily logins all the time, you'll have more than you ever need. You're getting 8369 health, 7582 magicka, 7582 stamina immediately, and you're getting major fortitude, intellect, and endurance, which is going to increase your health recovery, magicka recovery, and stamina recovery by 30%. Now, this character, brand new, haven't put the skill points in, I only get 36 seconds of that. If you invest those skill points I was talking about, you get it for all 45 seconds, which means during a fight, you will constantly have a 30% increase in your recovery. And every time you pop this, you're going to get 8,369 health, 7,582 magicka, 7,582 stamina. So faster recovery, and you're getting those massive jumps every 45 seconds because you're popping the potion. This is crucial. Well, why? Let's get to something like Essence of Spell Power. As a mage or a sorcerer character, this gives you major sorcery, which increases your spell damage by 20%. It also recovers magic immediately, right? And you get that major intellect. Increases your magic recovery. So as a mage, these are the skills that matter to me. These are the stats that I need to keep. I'm going to have a 100% uptime on magic recovery. I'm getting boost to my magic and 100% uptime of a 20% damage bonus to all my spells. That's huge. That is huge. 20%, 100% uptime. You can use that. Now, let's talk about this. Do you sit there and just run around Tamriel and keep your potions active 100% of the time? Of course not. That'd be ridiculous, right? Potions are expensive. You don't need to do that. But when you're in a tough fight, when you're in that vet trial, when you're in that dungeon that's a little bit harder than you thought it was going to be, yes, during those fights, you can keep these up 100% of the time. And here's the way I thought about it that made it so much easier to just kind of, I guess, where it clicked, right? Is you sit here with a skill rotation. This is not a skill rotation video, but you learn to, keep certain buffs active. You're waiting for certain things to proc, like crystal fragments or something like that. And as you're doing your rotation, obviously when a certain buff drops, let's use the example of, in the class skill here, I'll use Summoning Hardened Ward or Empowered Ward, right? So Hardened Ward, you get a damage shield for 6 seconds, or Empowered Ward, you get a damage shield for 10 seconds. Okay. Every 10 seconds or every 6 seconds, you're going to reapply that in a tough battle because you want that damage shield to be there. So every 6 seconds, you're already mentally thinking about, time to reapply Hardened Ward. Okay? Or whatever it might be. If it's let's use the one that I like to use here is Crit Surge, right? So for Critical Surge, why is this important? People run Crit Surge because you get Major Brutality and Sorcery, which is going to increase your weapon and damage by 20%. Sound familiar? Your potion already does that. And while it's active, you do critical damage, which heals you for 3,300 health. Okay, fantastic. Point, though, is I have to put Crit Surge in my bar and use up one of my spaces. Instead of being a skill that does damage to the enemy, I have to keep this buff up so I have 20% weapon and spell damage. I don't need to have that on there anymore because I'm using this potion. That gives me one extra skill slot that I can use to actually do more damage. So that's a huge boost when you consider the fact that how are these people getting this, getting to 100,000 DPS? It's because they're not wasting their skill bar with skills that do a buff that their potion could give them for free. I should say for free in quotes because potions are expensive, right? You have to keep these there. You want to make sure you buy them. Check guild traders. If you see them on sale, grab them. The other thing you do is you have to raise alchemy anyway. You can make them yourself. You do have to make sure you have the raw ingredients for them. There's a reason that things like cornflower and Lady's Smock go for so much money on guild traders because you need them to make these endgame potions. But these are things that you should just be thinking, okay, end game level content, you're just going to be running these basically 100% of the time as a survivability option. Okay? Again, don't forget about them. Make sure you keep your potions active. It is a massive boost of stats that you cannot neglect. There is no way when you're on a trial dummy, when you see these characters and these build guides and they're doing again 100,000+ DPS, absolutely they're running a potion. Absolutely they have a food buff active. Absolutely they have all of their skill passives working synergistically to maximize the damage that they do. So that's very important. All right, guys, and just as a little bonus, this isn't one of the three, but just something kind of like an honorable mention. I guess you could say it's the fourth stat if you want. Another thing to remember is on your weapons, if you're running an enchantment, right? So in this one, it's Absorb Magicka, which deals 1894 Magicka damage, right? A lot of people will morph these or enchant into different things. But if you're going to run that, make sure that you actually have your weapons charged. And if you're not running that and you're going to run poisons, make sure that you actually have a poison equipped in the poison slot and that you have poisons in your inventory so you can use those. Again, free damage just for putting something in here or making sure that your weapon is charged, okay? Don't go into an endgame battle and your weapon has no charge in it because you're just giving up damage that you could have had for free. You don't even have to think about. So that's a little bonus one there. All right, guys. So I know a lot of these things seem obvious, right? It's like these are obvious things to do when I'm playing Elder Scrolls, but I'm telling you, people spend weeks farming dungeons and trials for perfected gear, and they're not running potions. You have to understand how silly that sounds. Why are you going to sit there and farm perfected false gods and you're sitting there trying to get into pug trial groups, or maybe you're even part of a good guild and you can get into the trials, but you're still waiting to find just that right piece or just that right trait on the piece, but you're not running a potion? I'm telling you right now, the difference between regular false gods and perfected is not as significant as you just having a potion or a food buff active. You have to be doing all three of those baseline things for that gear to make sense, right? The other thing I see people doing all the time is they're sitting there saving up their money and saving up their resources and time to gold out their gear. Yet again, they're not running potions and they're not running food. This is ridiculous. It is so expensive to gold out gear. If you have everything else done, right, your rotation is down, you have all of the buffs you need at all times, your potions are going to be on there, your food buffs are going to be on there, sure, absolutely. At that point, going from purple to gold gear is going to make a difference for you, and it's going to edge you out in that top tier DPS range. I get that. Keep in mind, though, at the next patch, you're going to have to get new gear because the metas are always changing, and you're going to have to gold that out. But it's insanity to think that golding out your gear is the secret somehow when you're not going to run a food buff, or if you're not going to have all the passives synergistically working to give yourself the maximum damage. Because the difference between purple and gold gear just simply isn't that much compared to just running a potion in the first place, right? Think about it this way. An average player with gold gear is never going to out DPS a good player with the right buffs and a good rotation. Does that make sense? It's just not going to happen, right? So gold gear isn't the secret. It's just a tiny little icing to the cake at the end once you have the fundamentals down, right? So these three basic stat boosting tips are simple to implement, but they can make a huge difference in your ESO experience. All right, so I hope you learned something in this video, and I hope this video was helpful for you. And if you did learn something from this video, I just ask that it would be great if you could give us a like down below. Feel free to add any comments. We love feedback on our videos, and subscribe to our channel. Like I said, it only takes a couple of seconds to like a video, but it makes a big difference to us. So we thank you so much for your support and spending time with us today, and we'll see you online.